Our second video of this section is about interval notation. I'm going to start off where we left off on the first video. I'm going to use these inequalities and the graphs of the inequalities to explain interval notation. So interval notation, excuse me. So interval notation simply is a different way of writing the inequality. So if I look at the graph of a is greater than 4, I had an open point at 4, and this graph was going forever to the right. So forever, we can think of that as being a number, or better said, an expression of infinity. It's going to the right infinitely. So interval notation says, let's take our starting point of 4, and let's write that as 4 comma infinity. So it starts at 4 and it goes forever to the right. And we're going to put a parenthesis around the 4 because we're starting at an open point, and we're going to put a parenthesis around infinity because we can never get to infinity. It is just an expression. Okay, it is considered unbounded. So it's going forever. Let's take a look at B. So B said P is less than or equal to 2. So now this graph was going forever to the left, so we could think of that as going to infinity also, but now we're going to put a negative sign out front, just indicating that it's going forever to the left as opposed to forever to the right. So we're going to start now from the left. Anytime you write interval notation, you're going to start from the left. So we have negative infinity, comma, and our endpoint this time was positive 2. So just like the last time, I'm going to put a parenthesis around negative infinity because we can never get there. But this time, the 2 has a solid point. So instead of putting a parenthesis, I'm going to put a bracket. That bracket means that it's included. It is equal to that 2. But this interval is also considered unbounded because it's going forever to the left, towards negative infinity. And then finally, C, we have our interval starts at negative 3 and goes to positive 5. It's a closed point at negative 3, so I'm going to put a bracket around the negative 3, and I'm going to put a parenthesis around the 5 since it's not included. Okay, so that is interval notation as it relates to the graphs of inequalities. Let's just look at some of these examples that are similar to the homework, where they give you interval notation and they're asked for a graph and an inequality. So this starts at negative 7 and it goes to 1. I'm going to put some other numbers around these. Negative 6, 1, 2, 0. So it starts at negative 7, it goes to 1. Negative 7 is open, 1 is closed. So it looks like this. Okay, oftentimes I'm going to do this. I graph those with just a straight line. Okay, so that's your graph of that interval. And in inequality notation, starts at negative 7, it ends at 1. We're going to use some variable. Oftentimes we use x. So x is between negative 7 and 1. Oh, excuse me. I need to undo that because I messed up one of the inequalities. That one is not equal to, 1 is equal to. Okay, so x is greater than negative 7. You read this from the middle out. So you're starting reading it from x and you're working your way that way. So x is greater than negative 7. You're reading that backwards. X is greater than negative 7 and less than or equal to 1. Let's go to B. So B starts at 3, includes 3 because there's a bracket there, and goes forever to the right as indicated by that positive infinity. So starts at 3 with a closed point, goes forever to the right. So that's my graph, short and sweet. And as an inequality, let's use a different variable. Let's use A is greater than or equal to 3. So we need that equal sign because it's a closed point. It's a bracket. And greater than indicates that it's going to the right. And then our last one, we have, this is a typo. This should have been negative infinity. Should not see something typed like that with a positive value to the left of a negative value. So let's draw this inequality. So we have an endpoint at negative 56. There's a parenthesis there, so that indicates that it's open, and it goes forever to the left now that I've adjusted that to negative infinity. And my inequality would be, let's see, k is less than negative 56. All right, we will stop interval notation right there.